Hello, so my name is Lily and today I'm going to be trying to figure out if I have a favorite publisher. I was reorganizing my bookshelves. As you can see, things look a little different behind me, and I started to notice the publisher emblems on the spines of the books, and I was seeing, some common themes that I kept recognizing. So I thought it would be interesting to see if I have a favorite publisher. The way I'm gonna do this is with a spreadsheet. I'm not a spreadsheet person. I feel like a lot of people are, especially on booktube, like with your reading spreadsheets and your notions and whatever. That has just never really been me. On Goodreads, you can't filter your read books by publisher, which seems like an oversight. That seems like a feature that they should have. So I made a spreadsheet. The categories are the publisher, the rating I gave the book, the age range, and the genre. I'm not inputting the title or the author of every single book because it would take me days. And it's just to see if I can see, oh, I really like the YA from Avon, but the adult isn't really my thing. Or I really like books from Simon, but from Simon and Schuster, but not from Simon Teen, their YA stuff isn't really for me. So I just thought that would be interesting. And then genre too, oh, I really like the horror from Tor, but I don't like the mystery or thrillers from Tor, whatever it may be. I don't really know anything about publishing really at all, but we're gonna do this together. I think after I make the spreadsheet, I'm going to do some research on the publishers, maybe build a little TBR, maybe see what books on my physical TBR I should prioritize based on this data. And maybe this data will give me nothing. Maybe I like every publisher exactly the same and I will scrap this video, but we will see together. I think it's gonna be fun. So let's make the spreadsheet. Hello, welcome to the screen recording and voiceover portion of this video. As you can see, I am very hard at work here making this spreadsheet. It took me a very long time. I have to go into each Goodreads page individually for each book to see the publisher, and it took forever. It wasn't fun, but I thought I could talk about some things that I noticed and was having some issues with. Genre delineation. What makes a book a part of one genre but not another? I was trying not to have too many different genres because then it would be too much. But then I felt like I didn't have enough at times. I had paranormal and urban fantasy, and I was like, okay, maybe I don't need that, but I had it anyway. But then I didn't add speculative as a genre until I was halfway through, and I was like, okay, there's too many speculative books on here, I need to make it a genre. I was just putting it in fantasy or in lit fic the whole time. Actually, if you go back 5 seconds ago, you can see me Google what is the difference between fiction and literary fiction, as well as magical realism. A lot of books were popping up that on Goodreads, the genre was listed as magical realism, but I was under the impression that magical realism was something specific to Latin American writing, and a lot of the books listed under magical realism were not Latin American stories or written by Latin authors. So I didn't include that as a genre just because I wasn't sure if they actually fit. And then poetry. I've read quite a few novels written in verse. I was putting them in poetry at first, but then I was like, yeah, they're poetry, but are they? They're novels, and sometimes they're fantasy novels. So what do I do? And so I just put a little plus sign next to them. I did the same thing with romances that I felt were more than romances. I put romance plus. I did exclude graphic novels, some self-published books, and then classics or plays that maybe weren't traditionally published just because it didn't fit. And now I am calculating the average ratings for each specific publisher that appeared more than 5 times or 5 times or more, just because I felt 3 times that could be just one series that I read and liked. I don't feel like that's a proper full representation. Same with anything less than 3. It's like, oh, I read 1 book from you and I loved it. Okay, great. I love you as a publisher. That's not really true. So I went with publishers that I had read at least 5 things from. I also did pick and choose a little bit. This is not fully 100% accurate. I chose to exclude some mostly like middle grade series and publishers that only publish middle grade, just because I'm not reading that and it would not really be appropriate now. After compiling all the data, there's not that much. This video might be a bit of a wash. There's not as big of a disparity between publishers as I thought there was gonna be, but we can look at what I do have here. This is the publishers that appear with the most frequency. I decided to cut it off at 5. So any publishers that have less than 5 books that I've read are not on this chart because the percentages are already pretty small. So HarperCollins wins, coming out at 13.6%, followed by Scholastic at 9.3%, Tor 7.5%, and then Fuel and Friends at 7.1%. Oh my gosh, excuse me, I completely missed Little Brown and Company at 8.9%. So those are the top 5. And then the most useful part, this is the chart of the average rating of the books I've read from these publishers. So the top rated are Simon & Schuster, Flatiron Books, and Disney Hyperion. That's a little weird. That's got to be like some series that I read, I guess. And these green and purple bars are separating out the YA and the adult within those publishers. So from Flatiron, the average rating for the adult books I've read from them is higher than the average rating for the YA I've read from them. And that is trending to be the case. Tor, YA and adult are equal. Random House, Dutton, Farrar, Straus, and Giroux, and again Flatiron, adult is trending above YA. So now we know. Now I think we can take a look at my physical TBR and see what I want to prioritize. So these are all the books on my physical TBR. Already I'm seeing Crown, which I think I had read 4 from them, so they did not make it into the final cut. Flatiron Books, Doubleday, I think I also had 4. Simon & Schuster. Grey Wolf Press, I think I had 1 thing from. Same with Meerkat. This is self-published. Scribner, I had 1 thing from, self-published. Catapult, I had 1 thing from. Harper Via, I had 1 thing from. Atria, I had 1 or 2 things from. Picador, I definitely had 1 thing from. Vintage, I maybe have 5 things from. Random House definitely had a lot. Vintage again, okay. Riverhead Books. Anchor Books, I don't think I had any from there. So, according to the publishers that I have rated the most highly, the books I should prioritize from my physical TBR Okay, cool. So the books that I should really definitely get to are Secret Identity by Alex Segura. This was an impulse library book sale purchase last year, I believe, and it's about a comic book author, a comic book artist. Oh, it's 1975. I think it's like a mystery thriller, which I don't actually usually love. So why did I buy this? I don't know, but according to the spreadsheet, the average of every other Flatiron Books book that I have read is a 4.5 average rating. So there's promise there. Next is The Lightning Bottles by Marissa Stapley. This I have a really high hopes for. I think this is going to be really good. This is published by Simon & Schuster, and my average rating for them was also a 4.5. This is about, it's a novel that's part love story, part searing examination of the cost of fame, and a whole lot of rock and roll. I hope I love this. I think I'm going to. And then finally, A Broken People's Playlist by Chimeka Garrix. This is actually an ARC that I found for free at this coffee shop in Vermont. They had like 2 full tables of free ARCs, and I picked this up. It had previously been on my TBR, but I just didn't own a copy, and now I do. Hopefully it's not too different from the published version. This is published by Harper Via, which is a subsidiary of HarperCollins, I think. Why else would it have Harper in the name, you know? And my average rating for the rest of the HarperCollins books that I have read is a 4.01. So I hope all 3 of these books are amazing, and I'm excited to get reading. I feel like I'm always standing right here, but it's just the perfect place to film because my books are still here, but I don't have to like set up my tripod. I can just set you perfectly on the shelf, and the light is good. Whatever. Okay. I started Secret Identity by Alex Segura. I got to page 26. I read the prologue and the first 2 chapters, and this is not for me. I do not think this is for me at all in any way. I had a feeling. I don't think I'm not gonna finish it. I'm not gonna finish it. I wanted to give it a real shot. Usually I like to get further into books before I DNF them. It was really, there were some weird moments, like man writing a woman moments. She saw how men looked at her. More importantly, she understood how men looked at her. Trim and fit, with sleek, dark brown hair that fell to her shoulders and a pair of feral eyes that seemed to amplify a sharp, sly grin. The kind of cool, distant beauty and presence that could be both mysterious and warm at once. She'd heard variations on the theme from too many dudes, and it never ceased to bore her. A woman is not talking about herself like that. Like, sure, it's in third person, but like, you're also in her head. You know what she's thinking. A woman, she's not thinking about herself like that. What do you mean, the kind of cool, distant beauty and presence that could be both mysterious and warm at once? No one is identifying that in themselves. Like, it was weird. And then the writing overall, it was very, not overwritten in like a purple prose way, but overwritten in a way that it was explaining things through dialogue that the characters in the scene would already know these things, but it was having them say them out loud so that we would know them. And I didn't like it. And then of course it's gonna be like a thriller murder mystery, and I don't like those, so I'm not gonna finish this. This is a not good continuation of the relationship between me and Flatiron Books, but I have since gotten another book from Flatiron Books. I don't have it here. It's at my mom's house right now, and I'm about to go there. So we'll talk about it then. But it is The Dollhouse Academy by Margarita Montimore, who wrote Una Out of Order, which is one of my favorite books of last year. And I'm halfway through it. I read half the book yesterday. I'm obsessed with it. I am really, really liking it. Maybe that's like dramatic. I'm obsessed with it, but I am really, really enjoying it. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it once I can hold the book up for you. This is really good. This is really good. Flatiron Books, you are winning this one. I'm gonna have to dock points for that DNF, of course. It's about this, it's basically like a theater camp, but it's an academy, and it's for singers and dancers and actors, and it trains them to be the best at their craft. And it's creepy. It's not that creepy yet. But you're getting diary entries from like the most accomplished actor that this academy has ever produced. Her name is Ivy Gordon, and you're following, what is her name? Ramona, who has just been accepted to the Dollhouse Academy at the beginning of this book. Her and her best friend Grace both got accepted together. And the diary entries are telling you that this place is not what it seems, and bad stuff is happening. And I know I just DNF'd that other book, what was it called? Because like it was a thriller. Not because it was a thriller, but because I knew it was gonna do the whole murder mystery thing in a way that I didn't like. This, no one is dead, no one has died. And that might be the way I enjoy thrillers, is if they're not trying to solve anything. I'm halfway through this, and like the worst thing that's happened so far is one of the other people in their class sort of had like a mental breakdown, and that's it. And like, of course, like interpersonally, Grace is having more success than, I keep forgetting her name, Ramona, and that's never happened. Ramona has always been the more successful one of the two of them, so she's sort of struggling with that, and then just like general self-worth issues that again she's never really experienced before. These characters are 22. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. I think because it's set at an academy, at like a school, it feels like they're teenagers. It's not like it's written young. It's not like they're written like they're teenagers. It's just sometimes like I'll forget that they're adults, like college age people. So there are some weird medical exams that they have to do. Ramona had to go to like the guidance counselor because has been struggling in her classes, and he prescribed her some pills. And then like we got a diary entry from Ivy saying, those pills they gave me, they always mess with me, they're not good, like whatever. It's not like Ramona and Grace have found her diary and are reading it like as they're at the school and they're trying to investigate what's going on. They're really not trying to figure out the secrets of the school at all. We just are learning them through the diary entries. And I am enjoying that. It's not really similar to Natural Beauty at all, but that's what I'm thinking of, because your main character isn't trying to infiltrate the place and try to figure out what's going on, solve all the mysteries and liberate the people. Like, they are in it and they're not really seeing how messed up it is while they're in it. This isn't as messed up as Natural Beauty was. It's pretty normal, but I'm really enjoying it. I love books about fame and music and actors, and this is really good. I am almost wondering if this is going to get weird, like magical weird, or like at least, if not magic, like science fiction that doesn't like exist in the real world weird. Again, I'm halfway through. I'm on page, did I say this already? I'm on page 152, chapter 20. I'm not sure if that's a direction it's going to go in. I think either way I'll like it. I'll continue to like it. This also takes place in 1998. You couldn't tell. There's nothing, there's like no sense of place for the time period, at least. The school itself is it's like its own like mini city, kind of. They have like a main street and bars and restaurants that they go to that's all in this like compound. It's like a gated like situation, and like it talks all about like the architecture and the whatever and the whatever, and they're in like it's like right outside the Catskills in New York or something like that. The only thing that you're like, oh yeah, I guess this is set in the 90s, is that like they'll mention like she has a Walkman. She's really into CDs. It's like, okay. And that's like really, that's it. I don't know why this is set in 1998. There doesn't seem to be a reason for that yet. I feel like this could be the same if it was set today. Maybe like the phone thing, like they don't have cell phones, so I guess that. But like you could have I don't know, like they're going to this like super illustrious secret school. Like you could have them like not be allowed to have cell phones there. I feel like that would solve that problem. I just don't know why this is the time period we're in. It's not like a bad thing. It's just like at the beginning of each new month, it'll say the month 1998, and then the same with the diary entries. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's 1998. Why? But other than that, I'm really loving this. I'm glad I changed my mind and switched away from that other book that I do not remember its name. I don't keep track of books I DNF, but I might have to, if I keep this spreadsheet alive and continue to try to prioritize books based on publishers I've liked, I might have to find a way to include DNFs in the average ratings of these publishers, because I do not want to read another book like that. It wasn't good. There are 2 days left in February, and I hope I can finish this before the end of the month. Wish me luck. Okay, I finished The Dollhouse Academy by Margarita Montimore, and I am so disappointed. I'm like upset. The ending of this was bad. I feel like there's no other way to say it. It was bad. I'm so sad, because the first half, as I said, I was loving. The third quarter, loving. And then like not a lot was happening. It felt like there was no climax in this book. It's weird because in my mind, I dislike thrillers, but what was missing from this were some aspects that like you usually find in a thriller. Like the final showdown, I guess, between like the main character and the villain, or like she finally figures out what's going on and she's being chased, she has to run away. The person who you thought was good was actually bad, and it's like a twist, and when she realizes, she's like, oh my god, and she has to escape, and you think she's gonna make it and then she doesn't. Like, I like that part in thrillers. And this didn't have that, and it felt like it really needed it. By the end, it just ends. She ends up like figuring out what is going on with the school. Like I said, it's not an investigative book. The main character, Ramona, she isn't finding the clues and following the trail and asking people questions. Like, she is a little bit, but she mostly thinks everything is fine, and she's like, well, just to be safe, I better check this out. And then she gets proven right, and she's like, oh, okay, but I'm sure it's actually all fine anyway. Like, she's very much in denial, and so it's not like a mystery thriller in that sense, but in the end, it needed something. I am not sure how to fully say what I want to say about this without spoiling the ending, but they're in this, you know, acting school, performing arts school, and evil things are happening. It ends up being like of the like medical science fiction realm is what the creepy thing ends up being, which, you know, is fine. I thought it was, you know, it was good. And then Ramona, her best friend Grace, and then Ivy Gordon, who is writing the diary entries. At the end, like, they all go to like the woman in charge, and they're like, we want out, we want to leave, we want to like break our contracts, and here's all this proof we have, and here's like why, and like if I ever go missing, my lawyer has all this information, and things are gonna go wrong for you, so let us leave. And she just does. She just, like, she lets them leave. She's like, of course you can leave. She's like, you think you're special? Of course you can leave. Are you dumb? And then there's some like more details that are like very specific to like the plot of this book that I won't get into, but at the end, like, she's literally just like, yeah, leave, I don't care. And then in the epilogue, it's like 1 year later, and Ramona's like, it's been a year since the events that happened at the Dollhouse Academy. I don't know what happened to all the other people there. They must still be there. I, however, moved back to Brooklyn, and I found my passion in playwriting. And now tonight is opening night of my new play. And it's like, what are you saying? What? Like, I don't think I needed them to take down the organization from the inside. Like, she's one girl. What's she gonna do? There needed to be something. Like, she made one effort. So she has like her best friend, Grace. She has a boyfriend, Jude, and another friend that she makes at the school, Tia. And Grace is on board with leaving, and then she like goes to her boyfriend and her other friend, and she's like, here's all the stuff that's happening, like, we need to leave right now, like, we're going, like, we have a plan, we're gonna get out of here. And they're like, no. No, you can leave if you want, I'm staying right here. And she's like, no, you don't understand, like, it's bad, like, things are happening. And they're like, no, I think I'm gonna stay. I want to be rich and famous and successful and powerful. Duh. And then she's like, okay, and like she gives up, and like she doesn't try to help like any of the other people at the school. I kind of don't even know what I actually wanted from this ending, because I'm saying I didn't need them to overthrow the evil school, but I'm also saying she didn't do anything to overthrow the evil school. And it's like, she didn't. Like, she saved herself and her friend, and like, okay, I guess, but I either wanted a more like retributional ending, is that a word? Or I wanted what they were doing to be a little more evil, to be a little worse. Because as it stands, it's like, okay, but it's like interesting, I guess, but it also feels like something I've read before. I can't pinpoint in what, but it feels a little basic. You learn everything through Ivy's diary entries, and then you are seeing Ramona get access to Ivy's diaries and learn all of this as well. And you kind of think like, okay, but like, what's the thing gonna be? Like, okay, how's it gonna get worse? Like, she gets the diary. Also, the way she gets the diary is fucking stupid. It's so dumb. Ivy just like drops it at her door. It's almost like, okay, there's got to be something that even Ivy doesn't know, even though she's been at the school for 20 years. Like there's got to be something more or something new that they've started that now affects Ramona. Am I being too picky? Like, is this just complaining to complain? I don't think so, because it was like seriously lacking something. I don't even know what genre I would call this. It wasn't thrilling, wouldn't call it a thriller. The bad stuff that's happening is not horrific or scary enough to be considered a horror. Is this just like genre fiction? I don't even know what that means. Like it really feels like it could have been so good and done something so cool. They're doing evil things, and the evil things are, it's like capitalism. It's like, okay, we knew that. Give us just a little something more that's like horrifying and shocking. The other complaint I had about this was sometimes the writing felt a bit cheesy. Sometimes it didn't feel like the way people really talk. Besides that, and besides the ending, I was really loving this. Like I said, I really like the characters. Sometimes I have trouble being invested in characters, caring about them, like being invested in the choices they're making. I feel like I don't always have to agree with the choices that a character makes in a book, but it's nice to like have it make sense or like know why they're making the choices that they're making. And I really liked Ramona. Her choices were sometimes, they're like, sure, it's a little dumb, but of course, like it's a book. Like there's no book if the character doesn't make dumb choices, you know? So I really liked her. I guess I did also think that the diary entries were a bit like sloppily done. It's like very simplistic. It's Ivy writing these diary entries after the fact. So she's writing the diary entries at the same time that Ramona and Grace are at this school. And I think it would have been more impactful if you were getting diary entries as they were happening. And I felt like it could have been done better. So I was gonna say I gave this a 4. I already rated this a 4 on Goodreads, but all this complaining, I feel like maybe 3, maybe 3.5, which is so disappointing because I was loving it. You heard, you just saw how much I was loving it. Overall, just like disappointed, very disappointed. So Flatiron books, like we had something good, you know, but then a DNF and a 3-star. What happened? What happened? Flatiron. Okay, that's that on this. I will talk to you when I start the next thing. Hello, I am 127 pages into The Lightning Bottles by Marissa Stapley, almost halfway, not quite, and I think I am enjoying it. I don't think I explained what this is about at all. This is about a woman named Jane who was part of this band with her husband, and they were just like super famous. Like everyone was obsessed with them, like the band. They were the like alt rock popular band. And her husband Elijah has gone missing and is presumed dead, and everyone hates her. Everyone thinks it's her fault. They think she's a bitch. Like they don't believe that like Elijah ever actually loved her. They blame her for every like bad thing that has ever happened, basically. So she's a woman in the music industry. That's really all I had to say. And this mainly takes place, I think, 5 years after he disappeared. No, that can't be true. 1 year after he disappeared? Hold on. 4 years. It's been 4 years since he disappeared or died, and Jane has just moved to Germany, this like little tiny town, into this house where she has no neighbors, or so she thinks. Her only neighbor, like within miles of her, it ends up being this teenage girl named Hen, and Hen is like a super fan, a Lightning Bottles, the band is called the Lightning Bottles. She's a super fan. She is obsessed with them and Elijah, and she has this piece of information that she thinks means that Elijah is alive. And so she approaches Jane and it's like, hey, I have this thing, I think he's alive. What do you think? Can we go find him? And you get their journey from there, trying to follow these clues that Elijah may or may not be leaving for them, and hopefully eventually find him, I don't know. And then you're also getting flashbacks to when the band formed, how Jane and Elijah met, their childhoods, as they were rising to fame. And so far, I'm enjoying it. I think I knew this would happen, where I am finding myself enjoying the past timeline more than the present. We haven't gotten too much of the present timeline. We have like 3 chapters, and then the rest has all been the past. So that's a good split for me, honestly. But I'm sure going forward it's going to be a lot more present day. And present day is 1999, so it's not actually present day. But I just love the music of it all, the music industry. Like, they're talking about producing the album. They also have some enemies. So there's a lot of like antagonism as well, and especially like the whole world hates Jane. So it's kind of like negative. Like the bright spots are Elijah and Jane's relationship, and I really hope I continue to enjoy this. So I finished The Lightning Bottles by Marissa Stapley. I meant to update you more, but I was just getting through it really fast and I didn't really have a point where I could. I think I'm gonna give this 4 stars, like 4.5. I really enjoyed this. Let's see what happens in the in the second half that is not a spoiler. Most of this book is the Lightning Bottles' rise to fame and how they deal with that fame and how it affects their lives and changes them for better and for worse most of the time. And then the instances in the present day being 1999, where Jane and her neighbor Hen are trying to find Elijah. That is like much less of the story. I think it was a pretty good balance because they're not really doing that much to find him. He's leaving these clues via street art, and the next clue is like it tells them a location to go to find the next piece of art. So they're really just like traveling around Europe for not very long, and they don't really have to do a lot of like digging or investigating. So it makes sense that it was a much smaller part of the story. I feel like Hen, the neighbor girl character, was pretty flat and underutilized. She was definitely used to be a mirror for Jane and to remind her of the passion she had for music when she was a teenager, and she says multiple times she sees a lot of herself in Hen. But other than that, we don't really get a lot of information about her. Her mother is sort of overprotective in a similar way that Jane's mother was. She doesn't really have any friends, the same way Jane didn't really have any friends. Music is her whole life, the same way that it was Jane's, and it's her escape. And the lightning bottles specifically were everything to her. And besides that, she's not really anything. Not to be rude, but like it didn't feel like she needed to be in this book because of how flat she was. I understand why she was, but I feel like it needed to go a little deeper into her and into why Jane felt the way she did about her and felt so connected to her. Because obviously, like, you're reading the book, you're like, oh, she sees herself in this young, precocious teenage girl. But it's like, okay, sure, but why did you bring her along traveling through multiple countries without her mother knowing to possibly find your missing and or dead husband? Like, she didn't need to come with you. It felt like we either needed more of Hen, maybe even chapters from Hen's perspective. The prologue is from Hen's perspective, and that's it. And she just doesn't feel characterized very strongly, like, in her own right. Like, everything about her is how Jane sees her and what specifically Jane sees in her that reminds her of herself. It doesn't feel like she has a lot of bearing on the story, and you can really tell that she is a character meant to help Jane self-reflect, and that's the only reason why she's there. So I would have liked if there was a little more meat to her character, especially because this book is less than 300 pages and could have been longer. When they reach the end of the Road of Clues, it happens very quickly. Like, they figure everything out, they solve it, you know, they find the final clue within like a few days of them first meeting, and I think it's less than a week. And like, this isn't a mystery Like, it's not supposed to be, what's going on? Who's leaving us these clues? How are we gonna figure it out? It's a very simplistic journey, and that's how it's supposed to be because of everything you're learning, like, in the past. Okay, the past timeline, I loved it. I do, if this had been solely about their past and how they met, their rise to fame, like everything, this might have been 5 stars. I've said it before, I love books about fame and music and bands and whatever, and I really enjoyed all the little details about their music and how they feel about music and their writing and their performances. Like, I loved it all. The one other thing that was a little meh was the commentary about fame and how it destroys you and how it's never as fun or exciting or as good as you think it's going to be. Jane, when she is a teenager, she not only wants to make music, but she wants to be famous and successful and to be acknowledged as like one of the greats. And throughout this book, as their lives get darker and darker, she has to keep reminding herself, I wanted this. This is what I wanted. Like, I'm getting everything I wanted. But besides that, the conversations of like parasocial relationships, they're not named that way in this book, but like fans who want everything from you and who think they know you and who hate you when you don't act the way they think you should or in a way that aligns with who they think you are. The parasitic nature of fame and artists being taken advantage of. Those conversations, I felt like I had read them before. It felt a little bit surface level. It definitely wasn't as surface level as in the Dollhouse Academy. This was very like, oh, and by the way, fame is bad. And this definitely got more into it, which I appreciated, but it still felt like things you kind of already know. Like, yeah, of course, fame isn't all it's cracked up to be. Like, it's 2025, like we know that. I do think the way it talked about drug use and addiction was something that I hadn't read before. The way that was included, as their fame grows and grows, their addictions just get worse and worse, and they spiral and hit rock bottom and hit rock bottom again. And I think talking about fame and addiction in tandem like this isn't something that I have read before, but separately I think those topics fell kind of flat, but the way that they were talked about together I think was definitely more interesting. Not that addiction has to be interesting, but it was a framework that I hadn't seen before, the combination of fame and addiction and how they inform and impact each other. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, giving this a 4.5, probably round up. No, I don't know what I'll round to on Goodreads, but in my heart it's a 4.5. Oh, one more thing, the ending, it wrapped up a little fast and it was a little cheesy. That's just, I don't know, that's how I felt about that. No spoilers, obviously, but the ending was a little like, really? Okay, like, but yeah, I really like this. So the next thing I have to read, the last thing I have to read, is A Broken People's Playlist by Chimeka Garrix, and I will update you when I get a little bit into it. So I am just under 100 pages into A Broken People's Playlist. I've read the first 5 stories, I believe. I think when I originally put this on my TBR, I thought it was nonfiction. I think I thought it was like an essay collection or like taking other people's stories and like combining it. What's that called? An anthology, but like nonfiction. I don't know why. And then I like looked closer at the cover and how it says stories right there on the front. So then I thought this was gonna be like, oh, what's that book? Blackout, where you're following all these characters in these different short stories, but it's all taking place during this one event, and that is what they have in common, and that was what was connecting them, was the blackout in the city. And so I thought music was gonna be the thing that connected all the stories. I don't know in what way that that would be, but the stories themselves aren't about music. That's what I thought. I thought they were gonna be about music, and they're not. It says, again, look at the cover, it says stories from songs, and each story starts with a little asterisk at the bottom that says written under the influence of, and then whatever song that inspired it. So that's what it is. It's these different songs inspired these different stories, and I thought it was going to be about music itself. So for what it actually is, which is a normal short story collection, I think it's fine. Most short story collections I read and enjoy are fantastical or speculative or like weird in some way. Short stories about like normal people doing normal things never really get me. I find them to be a little boring most of the time, and that is kind of no different with this. The writing is definitely getting some emotion out of me. I've like teared up a few times, but it's not about what the characters are going through, it's about the feelings that they're having about those situations. Most of these are like, that I read so far, these characters are going through like hard things and it sucks. But since, you know, you only know them for 10 or 15 pages, you don't really get attached to them. You don't have a lot to care about, but since the writing is really good, it is, you know, making me feel for them even if I like am not invested or attached to them. And since these stories aren't about music the way I thought they were going to be, I don't care. So that sounds really harsh. And as for these being interconnected short stories, I guess what really connects them is the setting. They all take place in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and so far we actually have revisited a character from a previous story at a different point in her life. So far it's only happened once. I think in the end those are gonna be the characters that I like connect with the most and feel the most for. I will probably update you when I'm finished just because it's such a short little book. So I'll see you for the end of this video. I think I'm wearing the same outfit as I was wearing in a previous clip. It's a different day. I'm just an outfit repeater, so sorry. I finished A Broken People's Playlist by Chimaika Garrix and it was fine. I think everything I said before still stands, nothing really changed. I think I'm gonna give this 3 stars. Overall, it just wasn't what I look for or gravitate towards in short story collections, so. And now we get to wrap up this video. So these are the books we talked about in this video. Obviously one I DNF'd, but we still talked about it, so it counts. Flatiron Books has now added a DNF and a 3-star to its overall rating. Simon & Schuster added a 4-star, and Harper, specifically Harper Via, but it's all HarperCollins, added a 3-star. So overall, this video was not as successful as I think I thought it was going to be. I think something that could have helped this experiment a little more was not just averaging out the ratings for these publishers, but denoting how many of each star rating I gave to each of the publishers. Because if I've read 12 books from a publisher and they were all 3 stars, then the average rating is 3 stars. So one would assume that the next book I read from them would also be a 3-star, as opposed to if I knew, okay, this publisher, I've given 2 things 1 star, but 5 things 5 stars, then while the average rating might be somewhere in the middle, I more likely than not have success with this publisher. So that definitely opens up the door for more experimentation with the rest of the books on my TBR. Besides adding that aspect into the experiment, I'm not sure if I will continue to prioritize my TBR based on the publisher. At my core, I am a mood reader, and so these, you know, I didn't force myself to read in a certain order, and they were all things obviously that I wanted to read since they were on my TBR, but forcing myself to read something from a specific publisher because it could be really good as opposed to every other book on my TBR that could also be really good, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. But I think that's it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!